So welcome, everybody. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik Maliseet people first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik Maliseet title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Thank you for taking the time this afternoon. This shouldn't be a long meeting. We just have a couple of agenda items today. We have already mentioned some of the regrets. If we could get a motion, you've taken a look at the agenda. Does anybody have anything to add to the agenda today? Yes, Councillor Surratt.
I've been asked by a few that do listen in to add on in camera. It's about in camera and letting others councillors get into in camera. So maybe we could have that discussion.
So we want to have a discussion around that. Okay,
Yes.
we'll add that to new business.
Good.
Okay. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? So moved by Mayor Mood, seconded by Warden Muse. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda, the approval of the minutes of our meeting June 29th, 2021. I'm assuming you've all had the chance to read the minutes. Okay, are there any errors or omissions on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, can I have somebody approve the minutes? Councillor Surratt, and can I have a seconder? Councillor Dares, thank you. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have in business arising 4.1, we have fundraising. CEO Jeff Boucher was going to speak about the fundraising. He's developing an RFP for fundraising at the moment. It wasn't ready. We're going to defer that until our next meeting because he, at the last minute, was not able to attend because he was not feeling well from his vaccine, and it was a last minute kind of thing. So that happens. So we will defer until the next meeting if that is okay with everybody. Sounds good. So we're going to move to new business 5.1 projected expenses. Mr. Varon, do we have anything there for today?
Yes, I'm just working with Greg, the CFO for the municipality of District of Yarmouth, because early in the process, the municipality paid a couple of invoices for EXP, which I had, I guess, overlooked because we got an invoice from Modi for our share. So we did pay EXP some money earlier in the process. There was an invoice for, and I just have it here in front of me, $32,500 for the aquatic center assessment and work they did there. So that invoice was paid, and we also paid the consultant Max Chauvin an amount of $600. So I'm just confirming, I think there's a third invoice, so I'm confirming that with Greg, and I'll have an update for you as soon as I get that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Jerry? Yes, CAO Brooks, go ahead.
Nicole, so just to clarify, so those expenses would be flowing through the new budget allotment of $100,000 for this committee. So those would not capture any work we did prior to the new allocation.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Anything else for Jerry? All right. Thank you, Jerry.
Okay.
Next, we have 5.2 submission to the Mariners Center Board. So we had brought this up briefly at the last meeting about the importance. Oh, and by the way, I probably should have already mentioned, our application did go through. We got confirmation this morning that everything has gone through. It took a bit to send it off. It didn't go off as easily as we had thought it would. And finally, we found out that we have confirmation that it has gone through. That I should have told you that at the very beginning. So having said that, we have previously discussed presenting or offering the application, submitting it to the Mariners Center Board. So I just kind of wanted to have a little bit of a conversation or some discussion around that. So what are people's thoughts on that? What process? I mean, they should, should see this application, but how do we feel we should proceed with this? Any thoughts, any comments? Simply submit the application to them? What are we thinking? Go ahead, CEO Brooks.
Just putting this out there for the committee to discuss, but the day the committee met and we heard from the architect who explained why certain shapes were being recommended and certain types of design features were being recommended, it really cast the vision in a way that was tangible for what we all hope the Mariner Center will become to the county and to the region. So, maybe he would be willing to present the program elements and kind of what we're proposing to government. Maybe he'd be willing to present that to the board, and then, either all or some of the committee members could be available to answer questions that the board might have. I know, so, I'm the one who kind of pinged Chair Albright again on this, because I participated in a training session with the Mariner Center board just last week, and we were talking extensively about the expansion, and it just seems counterintuitive that they wouldn't now be in the loop about what do we think that might be starting to look like.
For sure, great. Anyone else, any other thoughts? Does that sound okay? So if we engage the architect and ask if he would be willing to present and have some members of the committee. Okay, can I have a motion? Would somebody be willing to make that motion? Okay, motion made by Councillor Dares. Can I have a seconder to that motion? Warden Muse, any questions on that? Okay, all those in favor? Did you have a question, Warden?
No, I was just wondering, so it's just to show them the application, what we've applied for, what to the board.
And kind of the design as well is
like design, okay,
right, so that they
yes.
can have a general idea of what it's going to look like.
Yes.
That as well.
Okay.
So there's a legal element to this as well. So the Mariner Center Management Authority is a separate legal corporation. It's a separate legal entity, and those directors are directors of that legal entity. And we will be doing this project under the name of that legal entity, and they're the directors. So there is an onus there, to close that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. So next, under new business, we're going to discuss in camera. So Councillor Surratt, can you give us your take on that?
Okay, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I had 3 councillors talk to me about they're attending some of the meetings, and their issue was when it came to our in-camera sessions, they get cut off to nobody's fault. It's just whatever. I guess Vicky knows who can stay or not. So they were asking. They are councillors. They have a note to privacy and in-camera discussions when they're at their regular meetings. Why would they not be allowed to stay in the in-camera portion of this meeting? And I said I'd bring it up. I didn't see any problem, but certainly want to bring it up to the board, to the rest of the board, see what they think.
Thank you. Mayor Moon?
Yeah, I agree 1000%. We are all on the same team. We're all bound by confidentiality. I think when I used to chair the airport, some councillors used to come, and then it would go in camera, and I remember saying, you're bound by the same rules as we are in camera, because we have to pass what we're doing, or we should be passing everything on to our councils anyway. So I don't see any reason that they shouldn't be in camera, and I see every reason that they should. Bound by the same rules.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, I conceptually I don't have an issue with them attending. However, having said that, I'm not absolutely certain that they would be bound by confidentiality because they're not technically members of the committee. I have no reason to believe anybody would divulge things from in camera session. But having said that, it's probably best to consult legal before we go that way. And there would always be, if it weren't possible, there would always be the remedy to have an in-camera session where it was divulged at our individual council tables after the fact. But of course, it's easier to see that for them to be involved up front. But I think before we rule on this, we should get a legal opinion.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Councillor Surratt?
I disagree with Deputy Warden Cunningham, but that's okay. We don't will always agree, Trevor. But anyhow, I disagree. And the reason I do is if we're bound by in-camera rules as councillors, why would we not be bound by in-camera rules when you're on a committee? I guess where we have, and this is I'm not trying to say that Scott and Grant are on here, they say for the in-camera, they're not councillors, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be. Probably like Deputy Warden Cunningham, after all, they're on this committee, but I find if they're there, and they're not councillors, why wouldn't the councillor be? That's my challenge to you, Deputy Warden Cunningham.
Thank you. Deputy Warden Cunningham, is your hand still raised or is that?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a technicality in a sense, but I think it's one that we should look into because the fact is the committee members are the committee members, and people who are not committee members, who happen to be councillors, may or may not be bound. I don't know the answer to that. I'm just saying we should find the answer to that and ensure that we're doing things properly. I don't have any particular resistance to doing that. I'm just saying we should do our due diligence before we do in fact allow that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, CEO Brooks.
I just quickly want to speak to the staff component of Councillor Surratt's remarks, just in that, in the terms of reference, the CAOs were given the authority to bring staff resources to the meetings to support the conversation. So, if at any time there is an in-camera item that it's not appropriate for a staff person to be there, we absolutely should feel free to talk about that for sure.
Councillor Dares, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, just quickly, although I would suggest that Councillor Surratt is correct in that it would be nice to have them on board when they're in the meeting, when they're attending the meeting. Are they attending as a representative of council? So if you're not on the committee, are you still attending as a representative of council? Just, if that could be clarified, because maybe it is worth asking the question.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Mayor Mood.
I guess I've always thought that I'm sitting on this as a representative of my council because we don't need, as we all said, we don't need 40 people sitting here trying to make decisions. But I'm making it on behalf of my council. So my council's going to know everything anyway. It's just, yeah.
Anyone else? Go ahead, CEO Muse.
I've asked the question of legal. I might get a quick answer. Just essentially the question is this: is because you're a non-member of that committee, what are you bound by? Are you bound by that committee, or does the MGA overrule that? And the MGA is very clear that councillors, in the capacity as being a councillor, must keep in-camera conversations confidential. And there are, right? So, and we all know that part, but it's whether it extends as a non-member of a subcommittee of council. My suspicion, non-legal suspicion, is that it probably does, but it may not matter in the end to the committee. I mean, the other question that the committee may want to ask itself is, does it matter whether they're bound by that or not? Are you still willing to bring them in? And that's like the element of trust. It's just, there's that piece too, right? I think, anyway, I'm pretty sure we can get a quick answer to this question. And the other thing is, you could, as a committee, if you to err on the side of absolute caution, is that you could ask those council members to sign off on some form of declaration that said, yes, I'm a non-member, I'm a non-elected, I'm a non-voting member of this, but I am acknowledging that I'm bound by MGA section on this. You could do that as well. It seems like a lot of work, hoping it's a lot easier than that. But anyway, those are my thoughts, and I flipped the email to legal because it'll be a quick answer, I'm sure.
Gordon Cunningham?
I personally have no problem with it if we're meeting in person. But when it comes to Zoom meetings and stuff, you don't know what kind of information gets fed around in the background via our devices and stuff. And I'm not saying anyone does it, but to me, that's concerning, especially doing it via Zoom meeting. I would have no problem with any of my council sitting in regards to any in-camera meetings on any committee I sit on. But doing it Zoom, there's just too many things that can happen behind the scenes that you're unaware of. It's just my own personal opinion. I'm a stickler for rules. This goes technically against the rules in Robert's rules, so that's my own personal opinion.
Anyone else? Councillor Dares?
Yeah, as I said, I'd welcome my colleagues to attend the meeting, and I don't see a problem with it, but I think it's just very easy to ask the question to confirm. And I would suggest that that's already been done. So we're just waiting on an answer.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? We wait on an answer from legal to make a decision around that? Go ahead, Mayor Mood.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think it's going too far, but I'm okay with that as long as if the answer is no, then we find a way to allow them to be in the meeting, whether it's signing off or whatever. I can't represent my council and tell them that they can't come to a meeting and listen in. I don't think that's what I'm here for, so.
The way I think of it is that it's kind of as Councillor Cunningham, as Trevor said earlier, if we go back to our meetings and we kind of talk about, if we're telling them, we're giving them the information anyway, to me, it would be easier if they heard it firsthand in the meeting itself, right? If they're in the in-camera part, then I know they're getting it accurately as well, but that's my 2 cents as well.
I'm with you.
Councillor Surratt?
And I guess the three people that spoke to me, the three people, and here's what it came to, and I understand it because I've been to the airport meetings where Pam was chairing and we stayed in the in-camera sessions. A lot of stuff sometimes gets discussed, and it goes further than what we put on a one-line item at a meeting. But when you're there, you really get it. And this is what they were saying. Transparency is so important. And some of the stuff that's on a one-liner at somebody says it at your meeting, it's not the same thing as when you're there. And that was and I agree with that. That's it. Thank you.
CEO Brooks?
Nicole, just through you to Alain. I wonder, Alain, if you could ask a follow-up question. So I'm just playing devil's advocate here. So if elected officials who are not council's appointees to this committee are in camera, do we have an unintended consequence of not being able to say no to other people who are not appointed to this committee to be in camera? And I don't know the answer, but if we're going that far, right? Because this committee now has spending authority. They've got a budget. So just don't want unintended consequences. That's all.
I can certainly forward a follow-up question, but I think the distinction for sure for opening the door for elected is because of the protection under the MGA would be that would be the differentiation. But I'll forward that to legal.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? Okay, so what is the wish? How do we want to move forward on this? Go ahead, Trevor.
So I think we table this item until we get some word back through Alain, and move forward with the agenda.
That sound good? That okay with everyone? Okay, so this will be an agenda item for next week's meeting. Hopefully, I'm sure we'll have an answer by then, and we'll have something a little more to work with for next week. Okay, thank you, Councillor Surratt, for bringing that up. Next, we have our in-camera session. Actually, we will go into our in-camera session. So can we have so the next item to determine is our next meeting. So is everybody available next Wednesday, July 14th at 3 o'clock? Does that work for everybody?
What are we doing then? Are we doing,
The fundraising, the RFP. That's if Jeff has it prepared.
yep. Okay, I have at 3, did you say?
Is that okay? Is
Yeah,
there-
I have the minister booked from 2 to 3:30, but we'll be done.
Okay, because I can move it if you need it to be
No.
moved.
No, I can just leave early.
Okay. So our next meeting will be Wednesday, July 14th at 3 o'clock. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Trevor, and seconded by John. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time this afternoon, and we will see you next week. Thank you.